continuing a series called Fearless. And we've been taking a look at a scripture in the Bible found in 1 John, and we'll put this up on the screen, where it says this: there is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. That we don't have to be afraid, that God doesn't want us to be afraid. He doesn't want us to live under fear. And we're learning that the solution to all of our fears is Jesus. Last week, we continued the series by talking about the fear of forgiveness, that some people are scared of forgiveness. We might not think of it that way because it's often masked in anger. So if you struggle with having a grudge or feeling like, hey, I'm drinking the poison and I don't know how to get rid of that in my life, go back and listen to last week's message. newbranch.net is our website. And Francine Chase gave a very powerful testimony last week. So if you didn't get to hear that, please do it, or you want to share that with somebody else. Today we're going to continue by talking about a fear that I truly believe that today could really change somebody's life. That as we look at what we're going through today, what we're going to see is that this could give you really the keys to the kingdom of God. That for somebody, this could unlock a perspective that could really just change everything. And it's this, okay? It's this. The fear is this, is the fear of provision. What do you do when you don't have enough? What do you do when you don't have enough? So what I want to do before we get started is this. Not just the principle, but I want you to think specifically just one thing. What is the one thing right now that if you were going to fill in the blank that you would say, if God would do this for me, it could fix my problem? Okay. Maybe it's money. Anybody? I mean, like, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, like, maybe that really is legit to go, hey, if I had this, then I'd be happy, you know, or if I had this, it would really make my life better. And it might not just be for you, it might be for your kids. Hey, maybe it's relational. Hey, if I could just marry this person, I would be happy. Or if I could just get rid of this person, I would be, I'm just playing. You know who you are. Don't look at them. All right. I don't know where we're going with that, but you get the idea, right? I mean, hey, if you would just do this for me, this would make me finally happy. Maybe it's something very serious, health. You went to the doctor, you got a bad report, and if God would just heal me, I just feel like I could serve him better, I could do better, I could help people. I don't know what it is for you. Maybe it's an issue with your kids. I don't know, but I'd like you to write something down that says, you know what, this is my blank. If honestly, I need God to do this. And today, we're going to talk about really, I believe, the keys to the kingdom, and it's going to help us a lot. So what I want to do is, I want to do something that I don't usually do, because usually I like to share the principles as we go so I can be like, ta-da, you know. But today, I'd like to share the principles up front, because it's going to take a while to grasp them. Now, the problem with it is this. Some of you guys have been in church a long time. You've probably heard these before. And you can know them here and not apply them in your life, and this is the danger. You're going to say, I got it, but I have a feeling as you look at it, you might be going, you don't have it. Because you don't, if you have this fear and you're struggling, don't think you have it just because it sounds so cliche. It's not cliche at all, and it could change a perspective in your life that could truly change everything, just like it's doing for me, okay? All right, John chapter 10 and verse 10, it says this. The thief comes. Jesus said this. He said, the thief only comes to steal and to kill and to destroy. Some of us understand that life, maybe you didn't realize the real spirit of Satan or Satan is alive and well. Maybe you do. But you have seen the results that in this life, it feels like something is killing me, destroying me, stealing my joy, stealing what I want. Anybody experience that, or it's just me? If you live long enough, you'll understand that this is the way life works. But Jesus said, I have come that you might have life and that you might have it to the full. What I want you to circle today is full. How do you get full? And one of the things I didn't mention of the list of things that it could be is one of them is an addiction. You know what addiction is? I can't get full. Drugs, alcohol, food, pornography, sex, you name it. I'm trying to get more, and if I could only get just enough, I would finally be full. Sometimes we realize it's going to have diminishing returns, but I have to feel just enough to feel full, and then it never lasts. How do I get full? And Jesus said, I have come to give you life and to give it to the full, and today we're going to tell you how to have it. Okay? It's a big deal. And it's maybe not exactly like you think, but it is huge if you'll apply it, okay? So there's two things I want you to take from it, okay? What do you do when you don't have enough? Two things. You can write these down, and then you have time to think about them, okay? The first thing is this. Realize that Jesus is what you really need. Realize, I put it in first person so you get it. Realize that Jesus is what I really need. Realize that Jesus is what I really need. I'm not going to explain it right now. I'll explain it as we go. Number two, offer God what I have and trust him to give me what I need. I have to offer God what I have. You might be saying, I don't have anything. We're going to talk about that. Offer God what I have and then trust him to give me what I need. In that order. Realize Jesus is what I really need and then offer God what I have and then trust him to give me what I need. All right, so you ready? So now we're going to look at that through the lens of a story in the Bible. It is found in Matthew chapter 14. What I'd like to do is, before we go there, I'd like to just kind of set this story up for you a little bit because it might give you a little bit of perspective. This story comes at a time in the life of Jesus where he had been doing miracles, so he had a lot of people around him. If you've ever lived a public profile life, I really haven't, but as a pastor, you get known in the community or people know you, so you can't go places where people kind of know, hey, you're there. Oh, what are you doing there? Why are you seeing that? Or whatever. And so that's the kind of place that Jesus was in. He just had people flocking to him because he did miracles. And right at that point in his life, he found out he had just gotten news that his cousin, John the Baptist, had been beheaded and killed. So I don't know if you've ever had that day that came where you were walking along your life and then all of a sudden a tragedy happened. And that's where he felt. It's like you feel the emotions, but you're still a public profile person. It's kind of hard because you can't get away. And that's exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted to withdraw and have some time to himself. And that's what it says, Matthew chapter 14, verse 13. When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat to a private and a solitary place. So in those days, he could travel, and he was going from one village to the next in some big areas and small areas. And he goes, hey, I'm going to go to a small area where there's not as many people. And so he got on a boat to kind of get away from everybody, and he brought his disciples with him because they kind of stayed around him. But they knew he needed some time to himself. But when he got to the place, it says, hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. Okay, so it's as though he was in kind of a big area like Virginia Beach, where he had big stuff, and then he goes across the water to a little small place like Isle of Wight, only to find out everybody followed him, and then from the towns. You see, we understand that terminology, right? And he goes to this little small podunk place in the middle of nowhere like, I don't even have to say it, like Zuni. So you get the idea. That's where he's at. But I want you to see how that feels, okay? You're coming up on the land, and all of a sudden you're like, I need a break, but there's all this need. I want to show you what he does. Verse 14. When Jesus landed and he saw the large crowd, he thought, what is this many people doing in Zuni? No, I'm just playing. No, he didn't say that. When he landed, he saw the crowd, and he had compassion on them. Circle that. He had compassion on them. Jesus was a people person. Okay? He got energy, I believe, from people. And so as he saw the need, he said, hey, I'm going to put my grief on hold for a minute. And there's a side note here that says this, is that sometimes people lock themselves away in solidarity, which is not bad. Solidarity is fine. Solitude is okay, but you don't want to do that too long. And so what it means is this, is sometimes serving people can unlock joy in your life. And that's what Jesus, he got energy from it, believe it or not. And his compassion, he felt his heart go out to these people. And so he ministered to them. It gave him strength. And he healed their sick. They brought all these sick people to him. In another place in the Bible, we find that not only did he heal the sick, but he also preached to them for a while. Okay, he was preaching. It was pretty awesome. I mean, Jesus is a great communicator, and they're all there, and they're learning and all that. And then the next thing that happens is it took a while. See, as the evening approached, Jesus healed, and then he was teaching. And I just want to be clear on something today. If Jesus can preach all day into the night, I don't want to hear anybody complain about me going over a little bit. Okay, I'm just saying. And I think his disciples were like, wrap it up. Okay, this is right. Because we're out in Zuni, and here's the problem with this, okay? Here's where the problem comes in. This is a remote place. You get the feeling, right? They roll up the streets at 5 o'clock, and there's no place to what? To eat. It's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food, right? Go to Windsor, because they have Dairy Queen or something. But there is nothing in Zunai that I know of, right? I mean, there's no place to eat. So wrap it up. We're kind of tired. We've been doing it for a while, and you need to kind of wrap this thing up. Okay, this is the part. Pay attention to the sequence of the next part, because this truly is the answer. This is the keys to the kingdom of God, I really believe, and he's teaching them a lesson that's so powerful, I can't even tell you. Okay, verse 16. Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away." Now, that statement probably didn't upset them, okay? They don't need to go away. Okay, great, you're going to do something. You, Jesus, are going to do something. And then he says, you give them, you want to circle that? You give them something to eat. Okay, I think we told you, right? There's no places to eat out here. We didn't come prepared for 5,000 people, right? That's how many people are there. Oh, it's not just 5,000, it's 5,000 plus women and children, which means, we're talking about almost 10,000 people, maybe. What are we going to feed them with? What do you want? Somebody here today, see, you don't have enough, and you thought we were just talking about addiction or something else or materialism, but you're going, I don't have enough to do this, right? I mean, Jesus, there is not enough to do this with. And he's saying, I want you to do it. With what? With what you have. What do you have? Let me ask you a question today. What do you have? You're asking God for something, but he's asking you a question. What do you have? I don't have enough. I know. But what do you have? Verse 17. We have here only. You want to circle the word only? This is a phrase. This isn't a story in the Bible. This is the story in the Bible. You will see this phrase over and over and over. When God comes to people, they will say, I only have this. Or they'll say, I don't have anything. And then they'll go, well, I don't have anything, but I only have. This is what they're saying. I only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. They don't have it. It's believed that they stole it from a little boy. Okay, they stole a little boy's lunch. And I don't know what that's like in school, but the disciples are pretty rough people. Okay, but you get the idea. But there's a little boy there, and he probably gave it up, and so they're going around the crowd saying, hey, who's got some food? It's kind of embarrassing. But we didn't plan for you because you just kind of showed up. Okay, and so, and we know you're Baptist, so, if you don't eat, you'll probably die by 12 o'clock. So, the Holy Spirit can't go past 12. We get it. So this was obviously a Baptist area. Just saying. Pentecostals would have brought something because they already know it's going. Okay, right? True, right? And Catholics, I don't know. Anyway, we'll leave that off. We're going to have a holy war. Loaves of bread. Now, I want to make sure you get it today, so I went to Burger King. Don't touch my sandwich. And you might not want to eat this because it was here first service too, but you can if you'd like it. After the service, you're welcome to it. I want to give you an idea of how much this is, just so you get a perspective. There's not 5,000 people here. I know I can't do a lot of counting, but I'm looking out and I go, don't think this is 5,000. This is about the size of what they had, this is believed. We're not talking about a whole bunch of fish or something like that. We're talking about they're coming to Jesus and they're going, okay, you asked us to feed people. You want us to do this ministry, and this is what we have. This is a fish fillet from Burger King, okay? That's about what we got. And I guess the little boy's mom didn't like him because this is what she packed. Okay, whatever. Or maybe he just grabbed it. I don't know. But the point is, this is what we got. And it's almost comical. It's like, you asked us to do it. This is all there is. This is all we got. Now, this isn't a thought that they're going to go, anybody think we can feed even me with this? All right, you can get 2 of them for $5. I'm not sure that I would just eat this. But nobody thinks I'm going to pass this around the room and go, hey, guys, we're going to have a meal today, right? I want you to think about that. God will use what you have. Now, that sounds all great until you only have what you have. I want you to think about that blank. God, I need this. And he's asking you today, you need to rely on Jesus, but the other part is this. What do you have? Can I tell you that's the number one thing God asks? Can I tell you most of the time when he does a miracle, in fact, I can't think of one off the top of my head, where he didn't use something somebody had? I'll give you a couple examples. When he went to Moses, you know what he said? Moses said, I'm not the right person. Maybe if you don't know the story of Moses, let me just brief you. It's found in the book of Exodus, and it was about a man who was supposed to deliver the children of Israel from the greatest empire in the world, Egypt. And he called Moses to say, I want you to go do it. And by the way, you're 80 years old. You're kind of past your prime. And he tells Moses, he says, what do you have in your hand? That's what he says. You know what Moses had in his hand? He's like, a staff. Yeah, no. It would be helpful if that was a sword. It would be helpful if it was like a scepter of a king that could rule people, but not a shepherd's staff. What are you going to do with that? That's a joke. By the way, sheep are detestable to Egyptians, so that's kind of funny. That's what God chose to use, but that's a whole different story. He's holding a staff. And you know what God did? Every time a miracle was done, you know what he had? Moses' staff. When he said, hey, you want to part the Red Sea? Stick out your staff. You seeing it? When he comes before Pharaoh, he throws it down to prove, and it turns into a snake, and it does different. I don't know why they did that, but anyway. But that's what he does. You know what he used? He used what Moses had. Let me ask you a question today. What do you have? You think Moses is the only one? Oh, by the way, you know where he ended up putting the staff at the end? In the Ark of the Covenant of God. As a reminder that God will use what you have. I'm telling you today, this is more powerful than you can imagine. You got to rely on Jesus. You got to realize Jesus is what you really need. It isn't the staff that you need, it's Jesus. Be careful we're not relying on resources. That's not what this is about. Second person, I'll tell you another one. Just so you can see this is not, I'm just not pulling at random a few things. This is the story. When David came and he said this Philistine giant is coming against Israel, this 8-foot-tall warrior that was trained from birth. If you want to know what it's like, maybe rent Conan the Barbarian and you'll get kind of a glimpse about what kind of person this was, a person that could kill. He's killed thousands of people, sometimes hundreds at a time because he's a giant, and it's believed he was probably empowered by demons. He was part of the Nephilim, which that's really what it means if you want to know what he's like. And he's going, how can a 16-year-old boy from Israel kill a giant? And you know what God says? What do you have in your hand? A slingshot. Let me tell you something. You don't learn how to part the Red Sea with a staff. You don't learn how to kill a giant that was pre-selected from birth to be a warrior and lived in a warrior community and kill him with a sling. That doesn't happen. You can't feed 5,000 people with a fish sandwich either, right? But Jesus plus can do it. But he's always going to ask, what do you have? Too many people are saying, I don't have anything. God can't use what I have. Oh, he can. It's kind of comical at the time when they place a fish sandwich in Jesus' hand and he actually takes it to say, now watch what I'm going to do. Watch what I do with a staff. Watch what I do with a sling. Just so you know, you can read the book of Kings and you'll find 2 more accounts of Elijah coming to a lady and they had this big time of famine and God says, I know you haven't had food in a while. Why don't you go to this lady's house and she's going to cook you a meal? What he didn't tell Elijah was the lady didn't have any food left but a little bit of stuff for one last pancake before her and her son would die. So he gets there and it's pretty embarrassing to ask to say, hey, do you have, God said I could get a meal here. And she says, what I got is 1 pancake for this the last meal for me and my child. And I want you to hear what Elijah said. You can go back in the book of Kings and read it. He says, all right, well then give me a little bit. You know what we usually do? You don't have much. How about you don't give anything? You see, we diminish the fact that when you don't have a lot, that you can still be generous. I'm telling you, this is where the church goes. Oh, you only have a little bit, so don't bother giving. Because here's the problem that we're seeing. We think it's about the stuff. You see, if I have a lot of money, then I'm okay. God's blessed me. That's not true, by the way. I have a little bit of money, and I'm not blessed, and God can't possibly meet my needs with the little bit that I have. But you would be surprised that God can do a lot with a little, and he typically does. And if you're trusting in this, no wonder that's your problem right there. You see, this is not about trusting in the stuff. It's about relying on Jesus. A big difference. You got to realize that what you really need isn't the stuff. You really need Jesus. You see, in every one of these accounts, what happens? They learn how to put their faith in God, not in the miracle. I don't think they learn how to put their faith in, you know what, my staff is so awesome. Nope. My sling is so awesome. I never hear David bring up the sling again. You know what it really is pancakes are so awesome, they'll just keep going. No, it's not, right? It's not true. That's not what they're relying on. There's one other account in the book of Kings where Elisha, a different prophet, he comes to a lady's house and she had just had a devastating loss. Her husband had died tragically, and he was a prophet, and now she don't have enough money. And they're coming to take her boys into slavery. See, this has to do with other people. And God hasn't done anything for me. And she's so angry. And Elisha comes to her, and God hadn't given Elisha the first dime. You see, what I would have thought was, God, give Elisha $1 million so you can bless this lady. But Elisha comes to her, and he's like, I don't have any money. I'm a prophet. What did you expect? I'm saying a lot of the people in the Bible that God used had no money. I mean, the disciples said that, right? They were like, silver and gold, we don't have it. But I have something better. You see, I have Jesus. I have God's power. And he comes before her, and and you know what he asks her? He doesn't say, oh, I see you don't have anything. Let me go see if I can get some stuff for you. He says, what do you have? And you know what she says? I don't have anything except this little jar of oil. That's all I got, this little jar of oil, like olive oil, right? Like this much. He said, oh, well, listen, you don't have nothing. You have this much oil. Now, here's what you're going to do. Go get you a bunch of jars and start pouring. Can I tell you something? When God tells you to use what you have, it's going to seem the stupidest thing you've ever heard. That's how it's always going to feel until he does it, right? I'm telling you, some of you guys are out there and you're saying, I can't serve God because I've only got this much. Actually, what you're saying is, I can't serve God because I don't have anything. But you have this much. You just think that that's not enough, right? I mean, this is not enough to feed 5,000 people. This oil is not enough, but yet the oil poured and poured and poured until she filled up every jar. By the way, you might want to get a lot of empty jars when God says fill, right? Because he could have gave her a lot more had she got more jars. But it was enough to pay off her bills. It was enough to give her enough for retirement. It was enough to take care of her boys. See, realize that Jesus is what you need, and then offer God what you have and trust him to meet your need. This is big. This is not a small thing. And I'm just showing you because I want you to understand that this is the keys to the kingdom. Because some of us are saying, I need God to do this, and you're very frustrated right now because what you think you need is what's in that blank. And he's going, that's not what you need. What you really need is Jesus. God can do a lot. What do you have? What do you have? You know, Jesus said if you had faith the size of a mustard seed, you could say to this mountain, throw yourself into the sea, and it would do it. It would move out of your way. Oh, if it's in the name of Jesus. You see, so many people are trying to cast mountains into the sea because it's a really cool thing to do. God didn't call us to be cool, right? He called us to do this to not rely on the miracle, but to rely on the God of the miracle. So different than what we're talking about here today. Verse 18. Bring them here to me, he said. Circle me. We're talking about Jesus. Our faith is in Jesus. Now, I don't know how stupid this would feel. That's not what they were expecting, because basically here's what they did. They went, probably sarcastically, this is what we got. And Jesus says, give it to me. And they're like, if I was a disciple, I would have been rolling on the floor when I went, here you go. 10,000 people are standing here, right? Have you ever been to a place like that? Like Scope. That's what it looks like, only in Zuna, right? So we'd probably be at the fairgrounds or something, right? I mean, or in somebody's farm field out at Ken and Diane's house or something. And we go, we don't have enough food for all 5,000 people or 10,000 people or whatever it is. And we go, Jesus, now you're in front of the crowd, Jesus, go ahead. And they're standing down there looking at you like, I'd like to see what you're going to do with this. I think he's struck down with grief. This is stupid, right? It is kind of, okay. Verse 19. And he directed the people to sit down. So he takes the food and he goes, They really thought he was going to say, sorry, guys, you got to leave. That's not what he said. He said, everybody sit down. Everybody grab hands. I don't know what you do at your table. We're going to say grace. That's basically what he's saying. And they're going, what is he doing? He's lost it, right? They sat down on the grass, taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks. Here comes the prayer. God, we're thankful for what we're about to receive. That's a funny prayer. And he gave thanks, and he broke the loaves. That don't mean anything to us, but when they got ready to eat, that's what you got ready to do. It's kind of like we would carve the meat or something. That's kind of what they would do. They break the bread, and it means, hey, it had to do with sharing too, so they break the loaf, and we start sharing it. But normally you're breaking the loaf or cutting the meat when you actually have enough to share. Not like this. Can you imagine? Lord, we're thankful for what we're about to receive. What a nut, right? And then he took it and he gave it to his disciples. And I think at that point, it doesn't say this, but they're thinking, this is you. We're cool with you being up there on this stage and doing this. Don't include us. That's inferred. I'm cool with God doing this stuff, but don't include me. You know what they're doing? You're part of this. This is what you have. Guess what I'm going to use? What you have. That's silly. God can do it without me. Yeah, he can, but he didn't choose to. He chose to use what you had to prove something to you. And the disciples gave them to all the people because they're like, at that point, they're like, all these people are looking at him. He just prayed. I think everybody's confused. And then the food doesn't run out. And it fed all 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 10,000 people. Not like this, right? But it just kept multiplying. How does he do it? I don't know. It doesn't matter how he did it. The point is he did it. Because Jesus plus what you have is all that you need. Can I say it different? Jesus is really all you need. But Jesus will use what you have. It's unbelievable how that works. Okay, verse 20. They all ate and were satisfied. That sound the same? I came to give life and to give it till you're full. You get it? The abundant Christian life means that he came to make you full. Now, he came to make you satisfied. I thought about singing, I can't get no satisfaction, but I did it first service try, but it didn't work out. All right, so I'm not going to sing that, but I will tell you, all joking aside, can I tell you that addiction, what it's all about, is to be full. And I can never get enough. And I want a little bit more, whether it has to do with materialism, whether it has to do with pornography, whether it has to do with sex, whether it has to do with alcohol, whether it has to do with food, whatever it is, I can't seem to get enough. And I have diminishing returns, and I keep trying and trying and trying to be full because I think what's in that blank will fill me. But the only thing that can fill you is Jesus. Did you know that? AA has it right. Their first step is this: my life is out of control. I am powerless over my addiction, and my life is out of control. It's not and. My life is unmanageable. It's not and. It is unmanageable. I cannot control this. I cannot do anything about it. And you know what they do? Surrender to God. That's the key. Realize that Jesus is what you really need. You don't need whatever you're addicted to. You don't need whatever resource you think that is, because it will have diminishing returns. Whatever you get, here's the thing, you don't need a miracle. We got the wrong thing in the blank. Realize you don't need a miracle, you need Jesus. This is the point of this story. It has nothing to do with the fact that he can feed. He's teaching them something. Sit down and watch. Do you think God needs your fish sandwich? He does not. He spoke and the universe came into being. That's not what he's teaching them. I want you to rely on me. You see, you didn't get the lesson. Here's how I know it. You're relying on the miracle. The disciples are relying on a miracle. And he's going, I don't want you relying on a miracle. I want you to rely on me. This is a big difference. This is a whole perspective change. Yes, I can do miracles, but if you're only interested in the miracle, you're missing the God of the miracle. You see, you're too interested on what's on the table. You're missing who's at the table. And he's bigger and better than all of the miracles, because the miracles will come and go. And if you're only relying on miracles, let me tell you what's going to happen to you. The same thing that happened to them. You know why he did this? Because he said, I just healed 5,000 people. And you're sitting here asking me, what are they going to eat? Jesus is here. You don't understand. You didn't come to me and say, I only have. Do you know what I can do with what you only have? You still don't have faith, right? By the way, I know they didn't get the lesson, and I know he understood they didn't get the lesson because of what he did next. If you read the book of Matthew chapter 14, the next story is one that I just love in the Bible, and I've told 1,000 times, so I'll abbreviate. And that is this. He sends them out ahead of him on that same sea. And Jesus goes up to a solitary place, and he prays. So he's not in the boat with them. And a storm comes up on the sea. You know the story? And Jesus comes out in the middle of the night, walking. It says on the water, on the storm. I don't want you to feel like this is a sea of glass. This is hurricane force winds, and Jesus comes walking on it. Could he have calmed it? Mm-hmm. Could he have gotten them out of this circumstance? Yep. Could he have allowed it so it didn't happen? Absolutely. And he gets there, and they're terrified, right? That's what storms do. When you're in a little boat in a big sea, and a storm comes, you're terrified. And Peter says, what? Lord, this is really cool. Let me come walk, right? Because he's so ADD, he wasn't even thinking. And he jumps out of the boat, and Jesus says, yeah, come. And he walks on the water until he takes his eyes off of Jesus and looks at the storm, and then he starts to sink. And that's the lesson Jesus wanted. Remember, because he grabs Peter, and he says, what? You have little faith. See, if you have faith, you can say to this mountain, be gone. But that's not the point. The point isn't to calm the storm. The point of Jesus was, I could have calmed the storm in a nanosecond. The point is, I walk on the storm. You don't need me to calm it. You don't need what's on that blank. You need Jesus. And I'm telling you, this is huge. There's a big difference between name it and claim it and gab it and grab it, because they have only, they're only giving you a piece that God can do miracles. He most definitely can. I believe with all my heart that God can do miracles. But if you're interested in miracles, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go from Jesus healing 5,000 people to going, we just don't have enough to eat. God, I just can't believe you did this to me. To the sea where you're going to go, I'm so scared that this boat's going to sink. And Jesus is going, why are you scared? You know, this boat thing happened again. Not long after that, they were in the sea again, and Jesus was sleeping in the bottom of the boat, and a storm came up. This is why I know they didn't get it. And they come to him, and they're yelling at him, Jesus, Jesus, and he goes, why are you afraid? And he gives the keys to the kingdom at the end of that, and they go, because we can die. And he goes, I know. But let me ask you a question. Why are you afraid? Because I'm in the boat. Don't be afraid of dying. Be afraid of the one that can kill the body and the soul. And by the way, you don't have to be afraid of him, because he sent me. That says that God loves you so much and he offers resurrection power. Yet some of us are frustrated because we go, you're not filling in my blank. Because we thought if we get this, we'll be happy. Can I tell you something? You can get money and not be happy. You don't believe it, but I know people that have $20 million and they're some of the most miserable people you'll ever meet. Be careful what you wish for. Oh, if God would heal me. Do I think God can heal? By his stripes we are healed. I believe it with all of my heart. But here's the thing. If you're only trusting in healing for this life, can I tell you something? It's all an earnest deposit of what is to come. Because if you're trusting in just miracles for this life, you are going to be sadly disappointed. Can I tell you something? The death rate is 1 per person, and you will all make it. So somewhere along the line, God doesn't heal forever until eternity. How do I know? Because there's no 2,000-year-old prophets running around, is there? They didn't lack faith, did they? Can I tell you why I'm saying that? Because you're trusting in the wrong thing. It isn't about that. It's about Jesus. I'm telling you. Because here's the thing. When you rely on Jesus, it don't matter your circumstances. See, you're above your circumstances. That's why he walked on the storm. Now, could he calm the storm? He did. Poof. Could he do it for you? Absolutely. Could he use the struggle that you have? That's where you got to come to terms with it. Because if it's only the other part, see, the problem is this. Here's where the health and wealth and all that stuff goes wrong. It isn't that he can't do it. The problem with it is this, is that you're so interested in the earnest deposit money. Anybody bought a house? You know what I'm talking about? On a $200,000 home, we put down $500. And we're so concerned about the earnest deposit. That's what you're thinking about? And he's saying, here's the earnest deposit, your healing in this life, your money in this life, your resources in this life. And you're missing the eternal purpose of God, which still people are thinking about heaven as a place. And you're still missing it. You still don't have the greatest part about heaven isn't the stuff. It's Jesus. It's a God who loves you right where you are, and he has everything you'll ever need. And so no matter what you face, you never have to be afraid. And he can use what you have. Be careful to instruct God. Let me tell you something. I know it's true. I know what I'm saying is true. Can I tell you how I know? Because you can't teach what he's doing. Most people think, hey, I'm going to say it, and then God's going to do it. And you go, when Moses came to the Red Sea, can I tell you something? I read the story 1,000 times, and never once did he say, God, I know what you're going to do. Take my staff and part this sea. Never. You know what David said? I'm going to kill this giant with my sling. No. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to feed us for 3 years with this lady's pancake. Never thought of it. That was God's idea, not Elijah's. We are too busy instructing God to listen to God. I'm telling you, what you need isn't your instruction of God. What you need is you need God. You need Jesus. And I'm going to tell you, when you get him, it's going to change your life. You see, because whatever you're scared of right now, you're scared because you need a miracle. And people that just rely on miracles and not Jesus, they're going to be scared because they're going from one miracle to the next. And you'll see the children of Israel, they get a miracle, they believe in God. And then they don't have a miracle and they doubt God. And he's going, I want you to rely on me. And when you do, the joy of your life will be complete. I'm telling you, this is the keys to God's kingdom. All right? All right. Let's wrap it up. 21. The number of those who ate were about 5,000 men besides women and children. That's a pretty big miracle, right? Every time you think you don't have enough, I want you to go to Burger King and say, how do I feed my family with this? Little yet, 10,000 people, okay? Right? Just saying. Okay. How do we close? Here's the points. What do you do when you don't have enough? Realize that Jesus is what you really need. That's called a perspective change. When you think of your needs, don't get frustrated. Realize that Jesus is what I need. Watch him walk on your storm. That's what he's doing today. I don't know what you need. Number 2, when you realize that Jesus is what you need, some of you guys realize that. What else do I do? Offer God what you have. Offer God what you have. Can I tell you something? God can do a lot with a little. God can have a staff that parts a Red Sea. Can I tell you something? I know what happened for me. I've shared my story before, so I won't get into depth, but I just want to say this applies. For me, I was supposed to be a pastor. I went to a place and I got mentored. And then my wife got post-traumatic stress, or she had post-traumatic stress, and we realized it. I had to step back from ministry, and I was frustrated. God, why did you call me to do this? God, how could you ask me to do this? God, why would you do this to her? God, I can't do this anymore. I'm very angry. So one day I'm listening to the radio, and a pastor said, God is saying, why don't you bloom where you're planted? Why don't you do your calling right where you are? And it's as though God said, hey, I called you to be a pastor. I never stopped calling you. Oh, you can't be on a stage, but you do work around unsaved people, right? Can you minister to them? Oh, I see. Or do you need a stage? You need to be on the forefront. You need to do that. You see, because broken people don't care about this. They want to hear how much you care about them. Are you going to pastor or not? Well, my wife has post-traumatic stress. Oh, what do you think? God can't use somebody that has a sick wife? Is that conveying to you like it conveys to me? You saying God can't use you? Can I tell you that birthed the vision for this church? Now, you see, I could have done that without God. And then we could have had a bigger church with a bigger stage, with a cooler pastor. I was never really that cool, but I like to think of myself that way. Instead, we have a smaller church that meets the needs of some, that wouldn't have gotten their needs met in a bigger church. Do I have anything against big church? Nothing. I support a lot of them, and I'll do everything we can, and our church will do everything we can to support bigger churches, and that's awesome. We're not. Maybe we will be someday. It doesn't matter, because the point is, if it hadn't been for that, there's people that are broken that would have never came to faith in God, because my story conveyed is they're like me. God will use what you have. He'll use where you are. Be careful to ask God to release you from where you are. See? Realize Jesus is what you really need. Let me ask you a question today. What do you have? What has God called you to that he never released you from? What is it that you're looking to God and you're going, I would do this, but, and he's going, but what? But I'm too old. Mm-hmm. I hear it. I've heard it. I've said it, even though I'm not that old. I did say it. Can't use me. God can't use anybody over 60, right? Out with the old, in with the new. Really? Who told you that? You see, the enemy came to steal and to kill and to destroy, and he's robbed you of your God-given calling because somebody told you that after 60 you can't minister to people. Is that right? I can't minister because I'm poor. I can't give. See, I want to be clear. We don't check on what anybody gives. Can I tell you that? I don't, okay? We have a bookkeeper and all that kind of stuff. But you'll never hear from me how much you gave because I don't want to know and I don't care. It's not about that. And I can tell you why it's not about that. Because you could give a lot and it means nothing to God. You could give a little and it means everything to God. It has to do with how much God is telling you to give. But somebody's here today and you go, well, my little 10% won't make much of a difference. All I have is $1 and God can't do much with $1. You obviously hadn't read the Bible. See? We're still thinking about percentages and money and stuff and that a fish sandwich can't feed. This thing can't feed 5,000 people. That's stupid. It's stupid for me to give my little bit that won't make a difference. But I'm telling you, I'm asking you to give not because the church needs your money, because I'll be honest with you, the church doesn't need your money. I'm very clear on this. This church will go on with or without our money. This church will go on with and without a building, with and without salaries, with and without any of that, because God will build his church and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And the church did well long before it had a bunch of money. It's awesome that we do. I love the salary. Thank you very much. But the day it goes away, I don't have to go away because I'm not a professional. I'm called. Okay? Just want to make sure you know. It's not about that. But here's what I do know. If God called you to give something, generosity unlocks the power of God. And there's not one time that he didn't say, this is what you got? Give it. And they felt so stupid, right? The lady putting her 2 pennies in, the person with 1 pancake, the person with the old man with a staff. It's stupid. Unless you add Jesus. He can do a lot with what you have. And the reason why you don't have power in your life is you haven't given God what you have because you said, oh, God can't use me. I'm not good enough. I can't do this, right? I'm too poor. I'm too old. I'm too sick. I'm going to be careful. Somebody got a bad doctor's report and you decided God can't use me anymore because you know God can't use somebody with cancer. I'll serve God, and I heard this prayer. I remember a man that taught me this that had dialysis for 30 years, and he's one of the greatest Christians I've ever known, and I was so honored to be a pallbearer at his funeral, James Lamb. And you know what he told me? He said, I'm so tired of people praying, God, make me well so I can serve you. I'll serve you anyway. Might be the cancer God's going to use to help somebody. Get it? You can pray for healing. There's nothing wrong with that. You can pray for the Father to give anything you want. But don't be distracted by saying, well, he didn't heal me, so I can't serve him. That's not true. That's not true. My wife's sick. He can't use me. I'm sick. He can't use me. I'm old and in a nursing home, and I saw the greatest acts I've ever seen in a nursing home, full of people that were sicker than you can imagine. Because God can do a lot with a little. Stop believing that lie. Right? Somebody's here, and the problem for you is you're so guilty for the things that you've done that you say, God can't never use me. I'll tell you something. By his stripes, we are healed. Who told you that? You see, you're not who you say you are. You're not who people say you are. You're definitely not who Satan says you are. You're who Jesus says you are. That's why that's so important. Don't you let them tell you I'm too sick, I'm too old, I'm too guilty. I can't serve God. I can't be forgiven. Do you know that the person we're talking about, Jesus, he's trying to teach them something so that when the church comes on, they will understand. I don't rely on miracles. I rely on Jesus because Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead, and he says, I have resurrection power to fix whatever is needed. But if you sell it short on just an easy little miracle, then you have missed the whole kingdom of God because it's a relationship with God that you need, because that will last forever and ever and ever. And oh yes, he can do all kinds of cool stuff, and he will. But if that's where you're relying on, no wonder you're discouraged. You under your circumstances, what are you doing there? I can tell you what you're doing there. You got your eyes on the wrong thing, and the only thing we got to do today is adjust your focus. See, you got your eyes on the storm, and you're telling God, calm the storm, calm the storm. And he's going, I don't need to. I walk on it. I might want to use it. Can I tell you something? Miracles are only done when there's great need. Stop cursing God because you don't have enough. I can't serve. I can't do God's work because I'm just not good enough or I'm just too guilty enough. Jesus died for that. Come on, man. Come on. And all of a sudden, you will have joy because he will do more than you can dream or think or ask with your life. That's awesome. That's the keys to God's kingdom. Realize that Jesus is what you need. And when you do, Katie barred the door because God's going to pour out a blessing on your life like you can't believe. Okay? Can I pray for you today? Let's stand for prayer.